What if I told you a single signature on paper, one executive order, could instantly shake up how your Social Security check arrives, who gets prioritized, and who's at risk of delays or denials? Because as of this week, that signature just happened. And the consequences are already rippling through federal systems. No, this isn't just another policy draft or congressional bill stuck in debate. This is an executive order, meaning it's already signed, sealed, and active. And buried in the text of that document are a series of payment restructuring measures that affect Social Security, federal pensions, disability checks, and even SNAP disbursements. You won't hear the full story on the evening news, but once you understand what's in Section 4, you'll realize exactly why some recipients may lose out unless they take action fast. Let's break it down. The executive order is officially titled Enhancing Payment Security, Delivery Accuracy, and Program Efficiency Across Federal Benefits. Sounds harmless, even helpful, right? But don't let the soft language fool you. Because tucked between those vague administrative phrases are directives that authorize the Department of the Treasury to initiate algorithmic payment reviews, dynamic disbursement schedules, and something entirely new, recipient tiering. That's right. The term recipient tiering is now part of official federal payment language. What does that mean in reality? It means federal benefit recipients will soon be grouped into performance-based categories that prioritize how and when your check is processed. High verification recipients, those who've regularly updated their info, passed all prior reviews, and used direct deposit, will be placed in Tier 1. But if you've had address mismatches, missed reviews, or used paper checks, you could be classified as Tier 3, where disbursements can be delayed up to 7 days, especially during fiscal stress or shutdown conditions. This is where it gets real. Many of you watching this are either retired, disabled, or caregiving, and those small delays could be the difference between paying rent on time or overdrafting your account. So why isn't this headline news? Because the executive order uses technical terms and indirect language, most people won't even know what hit them until their payment is late, reduced, or flagged for additional verification. Let's talk about one of the most urgent elements, the automated flag protocol. Starting this quarter, the SSA and VA are being directed to integrate with the Department of Treasury's new real-time data filter, which monitors anomalies across bank accounts receiving federal money. The system is programmed to flag unusual deposits, multiple withdrawals to cash apps, or conflicting information between IRS and SSA databases. If your account triggers a flag, even accidentally, your next payment can be held pending identity verification. And the worst part? The burden of proof falls on the recipient, not the agency. You'll need to submit documentation, and that process could take days or even weeks. Think that sounds extreme? According to Treasury's own planning documents, this new protocol is already being tested in 5 states: Ohio, Georgia, Arizona, Washington, and Missouri. Pilot recipients in those areas have already experienced payment pauses while verification notices were issued. Most didn't know why it happened until they called the SSA or received a notice in the mail after their payment date. And it doesn't end there. One clause in this executive order, Clause 2.7b, empowers the Treasury to consolidate payment processing windows. Translation? Your Social Security check may no longer arrive on the exact same date every month. Instead, it could be distributed within a 3-day floating window depending on system load, audit flags, or your tier status. While this sounds minor on paper, it can wreak havoc on budgeting. Imagine thinking your check will hit on the 13th like always, but it arrives on the 16th instead, and now your rent's late, your utility payment bounced, and you're stuck in customer service hell trying to fix something you didn't cause. And here's something they definitely don't want you to notice: a directive labeled Phase 2 Efficiency Adaptation, which allows the SSA and Treasury to automatically switch recipients to electronic-only communication and notification. Meaning if you miss an email or fail to log into your My Social Security account for updates, you may never know you've been flagged or downgraded in tier. If you're thinking this feels like the start of a silent restructuring of the Social Security system, you're not wrong. Because these shifts, while framed as efficiency improvements, are building towards something much bigger: a federal-wide overhaul of how aid is distributed and monitored. And if you're not paying attention, you could find yourself downgraded, delayed, or denied, even if you've done nothing wrong. And here's where the alarms really start to sound. Section 6.1 of the executive order introduces an annual expense disclosure requirement. Yes, you heard that correctly. Certain Social Security recipients, particularly those receiving Supplemental Security Income, SSI, SSDI with auxiliary benefits, or dual eligibility under Medicaid, will now be expected to submit annual spending reports. Why? Because the Treasury and SSA are now tasked with building financial behavior profiles to determine if a beneficiary's reported income matches their lifestyle. It sounds dystopian, but it's happening. If your reported income is below the poverty line but you're seen paying high utility bills, transferring funds to relatives, or using services flagged as non-essential, your account can be marked for benefit realignment, meaning a possible reduction or suspension. And here's the worst part. They're already testing this requirement in several zip codes across California, Florida, and Illinois. Notices labeled 2025 Financial Documentation Requests have been mailed out to select recipients. Many people think these are scam letters. They're not. They're real, and ignoring them could get your benefits frozen. This is no longer a wait-and-see situation. The executive order also includes a federal overpayment recovery clause, which authorizes SSA and other agencies to retroactively reclaim funds if new AI-driven audits determine you received more than you were eligible for, going back up to 5 years. That means even if your payments were approved, confirmed, and deposited without issue, you could now receive a notice saying you owe thousands because an algorithm reinterpreted your data. And you won't get a call. You'll get a debt collection letter. That's already happening. In Q1 of 2025 alone, SSA overpayment letters jumped by 31% compared to Q4 2024, and much of it ties directly to early enforcement of the clauses in this executive order. Then comes the most dangerous piece of this puzzle, Emergency Payment Pause Authority. Buried in Section 8.3 of the order, it states that in the event of budgetary emergency, payment irregularities, or federal shutdown conditions, the Secretary of the Treasury has unilateral power to pause payments to Tier 3 recipients, no congressional approval needed, no hearings, no media coverage. Just a notification quietly uploaded to the SSA portal or buried in a Treasury press bulletin. Let that sink in. If you're in Tier 3, and again, that could simply mean your address wasn't recently updated, or you're still using paper checks, your benefits could be paused instantly, without warning. And no one in Congress would need to vote on it. That's what this executive order allows. This goes far beyond efficiency or fraud prevention. This is infrastructure for control, and it's happening without most Americans realizing it. We're watching a historic shift from monthly stability to conditional disbursement, where your benefits, your healthcare support, and your food assistance could all be regulated based on how cooperative you are with federal systems, how accurate your data looks, and how quietly you comply. And if you think you're safe just because you've always received your check on time, think again. The dynamic payment schedule provision allows Treasury to bundle multiple programs into a single review cycle. That means if your SSI is under review, your SSDI might also be delayed. If your SNAP data doesn't sync with SSA databases, your Social Security check could get flagged for mismatched income. Everything is connected now, and the connections are automated. So, what can you do right now to protect yourself? First, verify your contact information with both the SSA and your local Department of Human Services. Tier classification is partly based on how responsive and reachable you are. If they can't confirm your address or phone number, you are instantly downgraded. Second, create or log into your mysocialsecurity.gov account. This is where all major notices will now be issued. Paper mail is no longer guaranteed, especially under Section 4.5, which mandates a digital-first communication model for all Tier 1 and 2 recipients. Third, if you receive any notice labeled Request for Expense Review, Eligibility Audit, or Income Confirmation, do not ignore it. These notices are legally binding and time-sensitive. Ignoring them could result in immediate benefit suspension under the new rules. Fourth, start documenting your income and expenses now. Keep electronic records of rent payments, bank transfers, medical bills, and any major financial changes. If your file is flagged, the burden of proof is now on you. The SSA has already shifted from innocent until proven guilty to prove you're still eligible. And finally, reach out to your congressional representatives. These executive orders bypass Congress, but that doesn't mean Congress can't push back. Call their offices. Tell them these new rules are not protecting the people, they're punishing them. If we stay silent, these policies will expand. The truth is, we're entering a phase where trust in the system is being replaced with surveillance and control. Where your retirement, your disability check, and your food assistance can all be paused, reduced, or revoked based on automated metrics you've never seen and never agreed to. This executive order is already signed. It's already active. And unless enough people speak up, comply smartly, and stay vigilant, we're going to see a federal payment system where stability becomes a privilege, not a guarantee. This is your wake-up call, not just to stay informed, but to act. The system is changing, and you need to change with it, or risk being left behind.